Hi, I'm MT Karthik, and this is Plug Unplug. Plug Unplug is a book I've been working on for many years, just on the side. And I thought what I'd do right now, because it's not really advancing, but it is pretty good. I like what we've got so far. I'm going to introduce this work by reading it and putting it on YouTube. So this is the intro and the first part of Plug Unplug by me, MTK, MT Karthik. 37 years ago, in the springtime of my 13th year, I was 13 years old, here in this town where I'm sitting, a handful of 7th grade classmates and I were introduced to the first computer any of us had ever seen. Well, I can't say any of us. I think there were a couple of kids in the class whose parents had connections to tech. And there are a couple of very old local companies here that were using tech that might have been either associated with the military or the very beginnings of personal computing. But most of us, this was the first computer we'd ever seen. It was big, it was gray, it was heavy, it sat on all, and took up the entire desk. It had a 5.25-inch floppy disk that you could put in. That was the peripheral, if you would, storage. And then you had a serial port, a multi-pin serial port that you would plug in, and then that would go to say a printer, or another kind of storage device as a peripheral. It came with a dot matrix printer. For those of you who don't know what that is, so this thing would just print in pixelated dots to even create things as as small as characters. So it was the sort of beginning of that. The printers were incredibly loud printers, and they were relatively slow. There were probably typists, certainly there were typists who could type a page faster than this thing could print a page. And this was called the TRS-80. It was sold at Radio Shack. It stood for Tandy, the company, Radio Shack, 1980. And it did not last long in this stampede toward obsolescence that has become the trademark of personal computing devices. So maybe it lasted 2 years in our consciousness. This ugly, bulky, gunmetal gray personal computer, right? Because the Apple Mac and Steve Jobs was about to change things radically. But it had a nickname. We gave it a nickname. We called it the Trash 80, right? TRS-80 became the Trash 80. We were 13 years old. This thing represented, suburban popular society's introduction to computing. Our parents didn't know much about it, very few of our parents did. We were the very beginning ones to play with it, to write basic programs. You could buy one of these at the mall. It cost about $1,000, which was a lot of money, a considerable amount of money, more than a television perhaps at the time, or a comparable. There wasn't really anything comparable. It functioned as the typewriter, and it functioned somewhere between the typewriter and entertainment, I think. But you could buy it at the mall. This was the first time you could buy a computer at the mall. It had 16K of memory. So that was 1980, 37 years ago. 16K, right? Now, in the year 2000, just 20 years later, the desktop computer I had in my office at the New School for Social Research in Manhattan, it came with 80 million K and 512K of RAM processing. Laptops with as much as that and weighing less than 12 pounds were available for, say, around $2,000. That's within 20 years, right? And even those now are laughable compared to what you carry around in your pocket, on a cell phone, or what I'm filming on now in 1080 HD, for example. Most machines, even by the year 2000, had ports for FireWire, the beginnings of USB. The net had exploded from 1993. It had become very different, and the the sort of nascent virtual human extension that we call the World Wide Web, which didn't exist when I was going to college at the University of Texas in Austin, which makes me a pre-internet baccalaureate. We're a slow-dying breed, the pre-internet baccalaureate. We'll be the last, and we're getting very, very small, very, very fast, of the people who got a bachelor's degree without the internet. I think one of the points of this piece is that it is a vernacular history of my use of technology, and it's about yours as well, and it's about all of ours just in the beginning of all of this. I have wanted to capture that for posterity in a methodological way. So one of the things I did was a thing called the First Contact Project, and I'll put a link for the First Contact Project below. And you can click to that because that's already up. The interviews are. The First Contact Project is interviews of people of different ages remembering their first interactions with a computer and the internet. But it was done in 2005, 12 years ago. So the memories are already somewhat different, I think, from what would happen now, because of how memory works and how quickly and rapidly technology has gotten into our hands and changes so fast that we forget rather quickly during that stampede to obsolescence, the obsolete tech that we leave behind. We dispense with it. And so I wanted to capture people's remembrances, their memories, and so there's 10 interviews there in the First Contact Project, and I'm going to put that as a link below. I participated and withdrew from high tech for decades. I got real into it for a little bit, and then I pulled way out while friends of mine really advanced in it, and even just regular folks as end users got way more advanced because Silicon Valley and the end users had a relationship to make it how they wanted it, to make it easy. And I pulled out often of that and then would duck in and try to catch up a little bit, just enough for me to be able to use the tech I needed or wanted to communicate. And so that is why the title of this book is Plug, Unplug. This one's getting pretty long, so I'm going to end this now. This is the introduction to Plug, Unplug, a book by M.T. Karthik, intro and part 1.